Hi and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be painting some fun watercolor cactus and succulents. I've used them for a variety of things. They're super versatile and easy to do, so let's get started. For supplies, I will link them down below, but I'm using my Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors, and I'm going to mix them in a little palette just so you can see the colors that I'm using. And I have two brushes, a size 3 Princeton Select brush and a size 0 for small detail work. And we will get started by pre-mixing a variety of greens, and then we can begin painting. So our main color is going to be a green, kind of teal, and then we're going to have a green with more blue added to it, and then another version with even a bit more blue, and those will just be used to add some accents and depth. And we're also going to mix a little bit of pink and then one more green color, but we're going to make it a bit more of a yellowy green, just by using some of that same teal green base and adding some yellow to it. So basically we're just going to keep reusing all of these colors in different ways to mix and match and create our succulents and cactus throughout this painting, and they'll just kind of carry us through the whole thing. So let's get started. For this first one, we're going to start with the darker bluey green, and we're just going to begin making the very center of the succulent, making little triangles and just moving them around on an angle to curve around each other, and we're going to start building out from that. We'll add a little bit of varying greens here. You can pick what you'd like and just add little drops in to mix them. Dry off your brush and soak up a little bit of the color if you pool too much on. And we're going to take some more of that blue-green color and start adding another layer of leaves around those ones so they kind of begin building out from the center. And you can grab a bit of other green to add in if you want some color variation here, and just blend that out. Use a little bit of water if you need. And we'll just keep doing the same thing, using those blue-green colors to add leaves on different angles around that first cluster in the center. So grab your color, use a little bit of water to blend that out, and you can always dry off your brush and pick up a bit of that excess, and then just keep repeating the same thing all around. And for this next layer, just keep doing the same thing, mixing and matching those greens and building out the leaves anywhere where they fit nicely. I usually try to go for a gap in between where two leaves are connecting like this. And then after this one is done, I'm going to move over to the right hand side where that one leaf is sticking out and do one kind of directly underneath it because there's a bit of a gap there. So I'll go with a more green to create some distinction between the two leaves. Blend out that green a bit, and then we're going to start adding a drop of that pink that we mixed in right to the tip of our leaves. So just a little drop at the point there, and use a tiny bit of water to blend that together. And we're going to do the same thing on the left side here, but going a bit more green this time. Fitting a leaf into that gap here, blend that out with some water and add a bit more pink to the tip this time. We'll just pick up some of that color there, and then we'll do the same thing at the bottom. Add that pink, and then use your brush to blend that out. Dry your brush off, lift a little bit of it when needed, and then just keep doing the same thing around with green leaves and a bit of pink blended in from the tip. And remember, you can always dry off your brush and lift some of that color depending on how light you want it to be. Then we're going to take a very washed out version of that dark blue-green and just drop it into the white space here in the middle, just to show some depth where those leaves would be tightly packed together. And after this, we're going to follow up with 2 more green and pink leaves on the left-hand side, on the bottom and the top. And then we'll finish off our first plant of the bunch. And we are done our first plant. So now we're going to move on to a cactus. To start this one, we'll be using a teal with a little bit more yellow-green added to it. And we'll begin creating an arch on the left-hand side, which will be the outer edge of the cactus. So just starting from the bottom here, bringing that up, curving it out, and down again at the very top. We're going to grab some water and blend that out to make our shape a little bit wider. And then we're going to take the same color and make a panel in the middle. We're going to make an oval that's pointed on the top and the bottom, and then take some water, blend that out, dry off the brush, lift a little bit of that. And I'm also going to grab some of that yellowy green and just drop it into the top of this shape to blend out before it's totally dry, and do the same on that shape on the left hand side. Might have to wet it a little bit if it's dry. And then we'll finish off by doing the same shape on the right hand side that we started with. So we're going to curve the cactus outwards with that teal green color. And grab some of that yellowy green to drop in at the very top again, and just blend that together a little bit. Just a note that you want to pause here for a minute to let it be completely dry before you get started with this next step. So super easy. We're going to take some of that teal again and mix in a little bit of blue just to give it more of a blue tint, and then we're just going to fill in these gaps between with that color on both sides. I like to take a little bit more blue and just drop it in on the outer curve here to give it some definition. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side, mixing in some teal and blue. Use some water to just blend that together, and then dry off your brush to lift some of it and get it as light or as dark as you want. Now I'm just going to grab a little bit of pink and put some teeny tiny spikes at the top to look like a little flower in the center of the cactus. So for this next one, we're going to mix up some teal and use that for the body of our cactus. And then once we fill in the main part, we'll just drop a little bit of more blue tones to the bottom edge and a little bit of the yellowy green to the top to create some color variation. Once that's filled in, get some of your blues and drop those into the bottom corner here. Use some water to blend it out, and follow up with some of the yellowy green at the very top and let that blend together. Then we're going to grab some more of that teal and create 2 similar looking shapes at the top here. So one on this side, right at the top, and use some water to blend that out. Then we'll create one over to the right side on a little bit of an angle. And once we've blended those out, grab a little bit of the blue and drop it to the bottom side where these parts join the cactus. So right here and a little bit over here. And then again, taking some of the yellow green and adding it to the very top. Then we're gonna let this one dry while we move on to our aloe vera plant. So for this one, we're gonna start with dark green, and we'll start using it to create those aloe vera leaves. So they have a thicker base and a point at the top. This first one will be leaning out to the left a little bit, so curve it just up and out. Use some water to blend that, and once you're done, just take your paintbrush and pull some of the paint on this one side to create some very little jagged spikes, because aloe vera leaves have that spiky edge to them. So once we've done that, we'll follow up with another leaf in the middle and just make it a little bit taller. We can always add to it later, but I think I'll go to about here and fill that out. Then because it's facing directly onwards, we will create some of those spikes on both edges. And then we'll follow up with one more leaf on the right hand side here that curves out and to the right. Create that spiky edge on the inside here. And then we're gonna let these first 3 leaves dry while we add some blue to darken up our green to create the next layer that's gonna be hiding behind these ones. So we want it to be a little bit darker to create some depth. So you'll want to wait a minute here just to make sure it's completely dry, and when that's ready, take your darker green and begin painting some leaves tucked behind these first ones. So we'll start on the left hand side here, and I'll do one that's just behind this first leaf. Just peeking out a little bit behind this one. So fill that in a little bit darker, making sure that it's not the exact same green. And when you're done, create that spiked edge on this inner side here. Then we'll follow up with another one right here in this gap between these 2 leaves. Then we'll add another into this gap on the right hand side here. Once you're finished these, we're going to let them dry and darken our green a little bit more to follow up with the last layer of leaves behind all of these other ones. I'm going to use my smaller detail brush, which is broken, just ignore that, but it helps me get into those little spaces between. So I'm going to add one small leaf here, just making sure to follow that spiky edge of the center leaf. And speaking of the center leaf, I think it's looking a little bit too short, so I'm just going to go add a light green wash to the top and extend that point just to add on to what was already there and give it a little bit of height. And then going back in with that dark green one more time, we'll add a little leaf to this gap all the way on the left hand side. Now we're going to add a bunch of water to that green to create a light wash. And we're just going to use that to add some definition to these leaves. So we'll put it in the parts where they would overlap and also use it to create some shading on the bottom and define the tips. And add a little bit more in the parts where the leaves would overlap just to show where the shadows would be. Okay, that's looking great. Now we're going to follow up with a little bit of this wash on the cactus as well. So just going to define that curve where the main part of the cactus joins those 2 top pieces, and using the same light wash, we're going to begin adding some spikes to the cactus. So on this one, we're going to add it starting in the middle, just some little X's where the spikes would be, where the colors overlap. So I'm not adding them to every line, but I'm going to hop over to this one and add a couple of them here. And then we also want to add some to the outer edge. It's not going to be an X because we're looking at it on the side. So these ones will just be like a sideways V. So just 2 little sticks poking out. Then do the same thing on this right outer edge. And once that's done, we'll go add a few spikes to our other cactus over here. So these are going to be more like V's all over. So with one side of the V being a little bit longer. So just one little stick here and a bit longer on the other side. Something like that. And just add those scattered in random spots, and then we'll add some sticking off the side as well. Remembering to keep this wash nice and light so that it fades a little bit as it dries and kind of blends into the cactus, just creating a nice finishing touch. So once you are done adding those spikes, we'll go grab a little bit of pink and use that to create 2 small flowers on the top of this cactus. And we're just going to do that with some short, quick pink strokes, just creating some spikes in a cluster. And do the same thing on this other side, and then we are all finished. I really hope you enjoyed painting these today. Thank you so much for following along. Remember to like and subscribe and come back for more tutorials next time. See you again soon. Bye!